Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49.
Well, that was a game. It did not go as we hoped or expected. What is it about Minnesota? What is it about Minnesota and the Vikings and playing there and Brian Flores that just seem to make these games so hard? Way harder than it should have been. Adam and I talked about it. Adam is not here this morning. He is sick over the game. He feels so frustrated and so irritated. He's just sick over the game. No, he's a little wore out and lost his voice from all the traveling out there to see the 49ers take on the Jets last Monday. But it just was a week that was adding up to everything needed to go right for the 49ers to play well and play right. And if they had, they should have cruised to a win. But it was just all these things adding up. It's the short week. You play on Monday night. Short week to prepare for Flores' crazy scheme. You got to fly to Minnesota in a place that the 49ers have not won in 32 years. It's 8. They're 0-8 over their last 8 trips to the land of Minnesota, to the land of Duluth. And you just have, like Adam said last Friday, they're just weird games. You get a blocked punt. You give up a 97-yard touchdown. 97-yard touchdown. It's inexcusable. You should be getting a safety there. Instead, you're giving up a 97-yard touchdown. Brock has a weird fumbleception on this sort of throw where he loses control of it, and it's just a weird game. It wasn't good enough. It's not good enough. Can't be the standard. Shouldn't be the standard. Won't be the standard. But that was just a game. It just felt like the 49ers never got ahead of themselves. They were always just trying to get their feet underneath them. Just a game that you got to wash your hands from, move on, that the players have got to watch this game. The defense was not good enough. Yes, they forced the 2 turnovers, but they were not good enough. The offense was not good enough. Yes, Brock threw for over 300 yards. Jordan Mason ran for over 100. They put up a lot of yards. They were not good enough. They were 2 of 10 on third down. Did not have enough production on first down. They obviously have the pick and then the fumbleception. Not good enough. It's not. You can't play like that and expect to win. It's just a game that's how you lose against teams that you shouldn't lose to. Now the Vikings are now 2-0. They're looking like they might be the team to come out of the NFC North, which is wild to think about. A Sam Darnold-led Vikings team going to the playoffs, but this may be a team that the 49ers have to face in the playoffs. And so they got to figure out, what is it about this team that makes them struggle and play poorly. Now, on the other side, you have, again, games like this come down to a few plays or a few penalties that go either way. There's some teams that seem to be a really good matchup against other teams. And I think of like the Bengals and the Chiefs. Those are always close games. Defensive coordinator Anarumo always seems to cause Patrick Mahomes a lot of fits. I don't know if you saw, we're able to see a lot of the Chiefs-Bengals game yesterday. Patrick Mahomes had an interception called back due to penalty on the defense, threw 2 picks, only threw for 150 yards, and they still won the game on a ridiculous 4th and 16, 26-yard pass interference. I mean, there's just certain teams and certain defensive coordinators who really just have an edge over somebody. Anarumo is that with Andy Reid. He always seems to be on top of Andy Reid. Right now, Brian Flores seems to be that for Kyle Shanahan. And the way his scheme and the way he does things, he seems to always be one step ahead on that. But there are some concerns here through the first 2 games. The passing game really has not been clicking. And when you look at the average yards of separation that receivers are getting, the 49ers receivers are not getting a lot of separation. And it seems like every throw that Brock Purdy was making yesterday was into a tight window of some kind. We're not used to seeing that as much. Seems like teams are much more willing to play man coverage right now. What does that mean for the 49ers? You bring somebody in like Ricky Pearsall, who is meant to really help combat that, but obviously Ricky Pearsall is not playing. He was shot. You have a Christian McCaffrey who creates lots of matchup problems for that. Christian McCaffrey really going on IR, may miss up to 6 weeks. Brandon Ayuk, you are to be the man coverage guy. That's why you were paid $30 million. What is going on there that Brandon Ayuk is getting hardly any? You sat out. You apparently signed a contract that was on the table since the early half of August, and you waited an extra 3.5 weeks. And now this 49ers passing game does not look anything like it did last season. When Brandon Ayuk was there, he had his timing with Brock Purdy. There was a trust there. This is why you can't be dealing with these contract situations late into the year. You don't have the luxury of trying to figure this out in November. You can't drop games early because you decided to sit out to sign the same contract that was offered. This is the stuff that gets very frustrating for fans. It gets very frustrating for the team. What is going on here? We're going to have a call-in episode here because Adam is out. So we're talking, what are your thoughts? What are your machinations? What are your, beliefs on what the 49ers need to do going forward? What's the problem? I'm going to throw the link into the chat here. If you want to hop in, you don't have to show your face if you don't want to. You can be the anonymous voice on the other end of the internet. But this is a 49ers game that they shouldn't have lost. When Brock Purdy was getting sacked way too often. He's getting pressured way too often. We still have issues there on the right side with Colton McKivitz. That's not changing. There's got to be something that improves there. Jake Brendel has not been good. We got to figure that out. I'm really hoping John Feliciano can come back and really help us at that center spot. It's got to get better. The way that this line has been performing has not been good. There was a play early on. I remember seeing it. I haven't been able to watch the film yet, but I remember seeing it from the broadcast they showed from the camera angle behind Brock Purdy. The Vikings brought pressure off the left side. It looked like it was supposed to be jet protection. The Jordan Mason was supposed to pick up the end man off the left side. He didn't. You had somebody unblocked coming off that side. They covered the quick answers, and Brock Purdy gets sacked. Now Jordan Mason was, from everything else I saw from the broadcast, had some really nice blitz pickups, had picked a lot of those things up, but somewhere along the line, we've got to figure this out, got to figure out these pressure packages and how to beat these. That was just a sore spot for the 49ers in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Spagnuolo and Flores, very similar in their pressure packages, in their pressure routes that they take, and the things they do to really put a lot of strain on an offensive line, on a quarterback, to be able to have answers for what they come with. And it really, what I don't fully understand, and I understand from a thought perspective of where Kyle Shanahan was coming from, but I fully don't understand the process of this. There was way too much throwing on first down, way too many drop back passes on first down, when that seems like it was the time when Flores is going to be almost the most unpredictable as what you're going to get. And they were a very good run defense last year. That doesn't mean you go away from your identity, especially when you don't have one of your top receiving threats in Christian McCaffrey. You haven't had a full training camp with your other top receiving threat, Brandon Ayuk. But you're dropping back to pass almost 60% of the time on first down. Yeah, you're going to end up in a lot of third and longs. You can say it's because we didn't convert on third down. You're 2 for 10 on third down. But if you're in a lot of long third downs because you're not getting production on first down, or you're have a negative play on first down, that's a problem. It's a serious problem. And I don't understand why you decide when you got Jordan Mason that you're dropping back to pass so many times on first down. It doesn't make any sense. It's something that is very frustrating. I don't get why, like Kali said, Kyle started the game out with 3 straight passes. What's going on? Like, I said it on this show. I thought Jordan Mason was going to have a big game, because what made sense to me was that with the situation against Minnesota, you come out and you say, yes, they are a very good run defense. We are going to try and run the ball. That's what's hard against that defense. When you have things are going against you, if you are saying, Brian Flores is going to really just throw a lot at my quarterback very early on, and I need answers for what they're going to be doing, why are you coming out and trying to throw the ball so quickly? That assumes that you understand what they're going to be trying to do. I don't fully understand the thought process of that. And they did that a little bit more in the third quarter, and that was one of the better quarters the 49ers had. And then you end up in the fourth quarter, but you haven't closed the gap quickly enough. So now you're forced to again get back to throwing the ball. Very, very frustrating day and game for 49ers fans. I don't understand a lot of the thought process in this, but going forward, there's some opportunities. We're only in the second week of the year, so I said this after the game last week, that week ones can always be deceiving. There's going to be people are ready to say, write a team off. But the Lions are 0-2, or excuse me, 1-1. The Rams are 0-2. The Lions are 1-1, and they have not looked good this year. The Vikings are 2-0. Is that going to be how the season plays out? Well, there's a lot of football left. The Cardinals absolutely demolished the Rams. I switched the game because it was getting so out of hand. The Ravens are 0-2. There's a lot of things going on. Is it time to hit the panic button? No. But they do need to really, step up the execution level. The defense has been forcing a lot of turnovers, mainly because of Fred Warner. Fred Warner is playing out of his mind right now. He has 3 forced fumbles in the first 2 games and an interception. He forced the fumble against Breece Hall, forced the fumble down near the goal line um, on Aaron Jones, and then there was one of the plays that Sam Darnold was running out of bounds, and he forced the fumble right before he got out of bounds, and then picked off Sam Darnold. I mean, Fred Warner's playing out his mind, but we got to tighten everything else up. We're not getting enough pressure. We're not hitting our pressure packages well. We're not getting into our pressure packages well. Um, I was going to assume that we were going to be playing more of some of the pressure packages we saw in preseason by this point, and we're not. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what the thought process is there. I feel like we're playing far too much man coverage. Why you? Again, I understand what they're saying and the thought process, but that is a terrible matchup when you have, for example, the 97-yard touchdown pass. Fred Warner talked about it. Jair Brown talked about it. They were in man coverage where they were going to clamp on Justin Jefferson, where Odom, because they're trying to disguise the pressure, Odom ends up playing Justin Jefferson in man coverage. Now, he's only being asked to cover him deep into the outside, and Jair Brown's going to have him on anything in breaking with any depth. Well, that's a terrible matchup. And so my frustration with Wilkes is that he would ignore a lot of the matchups up front to have really positive matchups on the back end. Sorensen on that play, you're saying I want a really positive matchup up front, and I'm okay with living with a really poor matchup on the back end. But there's some matchups that are just you don't want to allow yourself to be in. Having maybe the best receiver in the league on your safety is a really bad idea. I don't care what, schematic advantages that gives you against Sam Darnold. That's a really bad idea from what just I think any common sense would have there. That's as bad of a call as Steve Wilkes going on a 0 blitz with 7 seconds to go in the first half. And both of them gave up huge touchdowns. That really was the difference in the game. That was the difference in the game. So, I mean, we can also say, poor execution by the defense, but that's just not a situation you really, because put yourself in Sam Darnold's position. If you're getting blitzed and you see you have Justin Jefferson on Greg Odom, you're going to put that ball up. That you just are. If it's an arm punt, because if it's an interception, you live with that. But you're putting that ball up. You're not letting yourself get sacked in that moment. So that defeats the purpose of why you're disguising the way you're disguising, because the idea then is that you make the quarterback work mentally harder post snap, make him hold the ball, and then you're going to be able to get home, force the issue, get a safety on defense. But when you have a matchup that is that vast of a positive for the offense, that's not making the quarterback work real hard. He's going to put the ball up. That's just what he's going to do. So I don't like it. I wish we'd kicked a field goal on fourth down in the red zone, because it didn't feel like you were right there close to a play at the goal line, and you just needed to run something else, and you were almost sure you were going to get in. But that is easier to say if he kicks it there and you end up not getting it on fourth down. Then when late in the game when they kick a field goal to make it 17-23, then people are going to say something about that. The analytics say you should probably go for it there, but the biggest thing, like I went back and looked at it today, you really can't expect to win when you have a punt blocked and you don't win the turnover battle. Yes, you force 2 turnovers, but you give the ball over twice and you have a punt blocked. You lose the turnover battle, you're going to lose the game. It's like 70% of the time. And then if you throw a special teams turnover in there, it's like 95% of the time you're going to lose that game. So just can't have these kind of things happen poor execution, sloppiness. Team was not ready. Now I know the popular thing is usually everybody jumps on the bag on the 49ers wagon and it becomes everything's negative and there's the post game rants and I don't watch any of that stuff. It's just I hope those guys do well and they get their, you know, cadre of people who really are into that. I'm not into that. I don't think a lot of people that are watching this right now are really into that. I just want to see things that get better. You have far too many mistakes, far too many mental errors, and things have got to clean up. The it's hard when you hear like Trent Williams, who held out for so long, coming back in, and he says, "Man, I got in, and the team was just laser focused. It was like they were on everything, and they were just really focused on what they were going to do." But then you turn over and you have this game where it seems like so many of the details are not on it and there's so many mental errors. It just feels like, are they really laser focused? Which is it, or is it somewhere in between? Um, I do believe that they're gonna get this turned around. If anybody wants to hop in and call in show, if not, I understand it is a game that nope, not many people want to talk about, want to be through. Um, but you can't have a block punt and then have your quarterback turn the ball over twice and expect to win the game. You just can't do it. It's not likely. And so they got to be better. They have to be better. Now, on the positive side of all this, you do have the Rams are coming. We're facing against the Rams, and the Rams are the walking wounded right now. They're going to be without Puka Nacua, without Cooper Cup. Both of them dealing with injuries, probably going to be out multiple weeks. Um, so this is a game the 49ers better get right. Their offensive line, the Rams offensive line is missing 3 guys, I believe, right now. You know, they don't have Aaron Donald, they don't have Ernest Jones. Both of those guys, big departures this season. This should be a game the 49ers get to your identity, get to running the ball, get to stopping the run, and then getting after the passer. That's what you do, and you've done very, very well. So, keep doing that. Don't worry about getting a sack on first down necessarily. Go stop the run. Don't worry about drop back and throw for a billion yards on uh, on first down. Just run the ball. Establish the run. Get that going. We got JP. He's in here. I saw him in the chat. Welcome in, JP.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing all right, I guess. I was about to say fantastic, but not really fantastic. I'm generally a pretty positive guy. This is your first time calling in with the show. You were getting after it in the chat. So, what are your thoughts on the Minnesota game?
Um, just had a flashback from February with the special teams muff and everything like that. It's just time after time, special teams just keeps letting us down. And DFF gave up punt block, and I don't know what was going on with the punter. He didn't know the rules or something to make a tackle on the guy or touch him or anything like that. Was
He
ridiculous.
pulled a Cam Newton.
And right, and
Yeah.
yeah, the in the trenches, um, got beat up in the trenches there. I don't know if you've seen, but I thought it was a few times where BA was open, Brock holding on to the ball a little bit long. But yeah, the separation thing is absolutely right. He's out of shape. You know what I'm saying? It's to be expected. Debo had a hell of a game, but you can't be throwing in four man coverage trying to fit a ball in the tight spaces. Like that makes no sense.
Yeah, windows are way too tight. I mean, and there's just times when you watch the 49ers and this has happened, through a few stretches over the years and it just where it seems like everything they do on offense looks so difficult and it just feels like they're executing by the skin of their teeth. And you watch other teams and you'll see it just seems like it doesn't look nearly as difficult. Like there's so much more space. Um,
Yes, exactly. Like on the 97 yarder, right? Like why don't we never throw deep down the field or just give our receivers a chance? There's everything is just so compact and so tight. Like you said, there's never like 4 times, at least once a quarter, throw a deep ball. Got to get a pass interference or something, give a receiver a chance.
Yeah, and that's really been a Kyle Shanahan thing going back for quite a while. I remember, he's very much about high percentage throws and things, and is really. I remember going back. We had these arguments during the Jimmy G era, right? Of that we didn't throw the ball deep down, deep outside the numbers as much, and people are just like, just throw it up, But that just has really not been a Kyle Shanahan thing. The only quarterback I remember really doing that under Kyle Shanahan was Brian Hoyer, who was on Peter Schrager's podcast last week, and he basically talked about that one thing that would frustrate Kyle with Brian was that he had come from a very different offensive perspective as far as how to play quarterback, and he was like, Brock, he's been able to have him play quarterback the way he wants it to, and you see that there's just not that's just not a philosophically what Kyle Shanahan does. You go back to 2016 with the Falcons. Matt Ryan threw fewer deep balls than he had at any point in his career at that point. Now he was hitting him at an extremely high rate, so he was throwing for a lot of yards. But that's Kyle Shanahan's usually not the I'm going to throw it up kind of guy. And so that's where you do wish in some ways that you go, okay, if you're going to pay Brandon Ayuk $30 million a year, you need to be able to do that at times. You need to say, this is a really good matchup because this is a guy I'm willing to pay $30 million a year to. I should be able to throw the ball up to him like I do, like other teams do with Justin Jefferson, with Nico Collins, with guys that are big time receiving threats, and say, you go earn your money and beat the other guy. And that does get frustrating.
And also, what about like the Saints? You see how the Saints were throwing to the running backs, Kamara and screens and things like that. Like that's just lost in the offense since Christian McCaffrey's not in. That's just crazy. Like, where does all those plays go?
Now that I need to watch the tape to figure out exactly what's going on there, because Kyle had, I believe it was Kyle Shanahan. He did talk about that with Tim Kawakami on his podcast, that he was explaining pressure pickup with the running back, that a lot of times he does leave that up to the quarterback. Of you can keep the running back in and allow him to pick that up, or you can send the running back out and have him as an answer for the pressure. A lot of times Jordan Mason was staying in to account for pressure. So it becomes this, kind of moment. And like I was talking about early, the play where a guy came free off the left side and Brock Purdy was sacked immediately, and he looked to his right. Jordan Mason went out into the pattern on the right. They ran like a zone, it looked like, that accounted for everything quick, and they have a free rusher. So after that play, it looks like now they're trying to keep Jordan Mason in to block more and pick up some of those packages, but then you have fewer options in your passing game. I think we always, it's this, easy to say when it doesn't work, that it was a bad idea, and easy to say when it does work that it was a great idea. Of, do you keep that running back in to help account for the extra pressures? Do you keep him in as that person to pick up the blitz, or do you use him as an answer against the blitz in the passing game? I think that's the thing that we didn't see enough of or correctly in this game that they're going to go back and look at. Yeah, I remember they did try a couple screens, and it was just, screens sometimes work, sometimes don't. We got almost burned by one, and then Fred Warner ends up punching the ball out, and that was a really good time. I mean, that was a perfectly timed screen by O'Connell, right? They're blitzing off the right side, you run a screen off the left. We haven't seen enough of those. So lost JP for 1 second. Let's bring him back. But I'll let you throw out your last thoughts here, and we'll get to the next caller.
I'm done. Thank you guys, and have a great day.
Hey, well, thanks for calling in, man. Good to have you. We're gonna bring in Mr. G here. He's coming in. How you doing this morning?
What's up, man? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, it's good to see you. I always usually hit you up on Twitter. Good to finally talk to you. My issue with the game is for me personally, I think they use Debo too much. Like,
Mm.
yes, he is a playmaker. We can't deny that. But to me, he's more of a playmaker as quote unquote a counterpunch, where once the game is flowing one way, and they got the defense has to adjust for something else. It's nice to throw a counterpunch as Debo. Then you go to him, and he can make his big play. Anytime we focus the game plan on trying to get Debo involved, more often than not, we're not successful and we bog down. Force Debo. And then the defense knows it's going, and they just go beat them up, and nobody else ever gets involved. So I would like to see more game plans where the unknown players just give them somebody else, give Cowling a quick slant, or give your unknown tight end a little flat out. Give them the defense something to make them stop and hesitate to think about before you start force feeding Debo. You took a point away from me about the screens and about IU, the previous conversation. I both agree with both of that on. But I've always learned that screens were the best answer to blitzes. So I was always curious why we don't run more screens when we run to these blitz heavy teams. We try to pick it up and expect our receivers to get open. That's fine if they get open. But the quick hitters is just as good as a quick hitter for like a 3 or 5 yard out or slant is just as good as a 3 or 5 yard run. I don't see why we don't tend to mix it up more. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
you know, no, you're not wrong. That's one thing that I've always had a little bit of a curiosity with Kyle Shanahan on his thought process on it, and I'd love to see some of the reporters ask him about this because he tends to run screens against teams that run really deep coverage. So like I
Yeah.
remember going back, I believe it was 2020 against the Eagles. Um, Early in the year, I think it was week 2, we played the Eagles. It was a close game, and the Eagles were playing really deep coverage. I remember the narrative coming out of that game a lot of fans had was that uh, we just never throw deep,
Hmm.
and that we needed to push the ball down the field. And I remember watching the film, and the Eagles kept 2 high safeties almost the entire time. Lost Mr. G there. Hopefully we can get him back. But that the Eagles kept 2 deep almost the entire game, and they were playing really deep on every single play.
Hmm.
And I remember Kyle Shanahan ran like 12 screens that game, and he was asked after the game why they were having some different struggles, and he said, well, they were playing as deep as I think any game I've ever played against. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I saw on film. And he said, so you got to do some other things to him to kind of soften him up and make him come down a little bit, and make their defensive line less aggressive, and screen him and stuff like that. That's how he kind of talks. He's like, yeah, so you gotta do some other things at him and screen him and stuff like that. And like Kyle Shanahan talks. And so that seems to be his philosophy more, is that you use the screen game to try and draw the coverage up to play tighter, closer to the line of scrimmage, and not as much as an answer for a lot of pressures. A lot of times his answers are those tunnel screens.
Hmm.
So that's where, and so you saw that near the end of the game, the throw
Hmm.
to Debo that was wild.
McKivitz
Another one
blew it
that was
up.
tipped.
Also, McKivitz, he missed that block. That on a quick hitter screen like that, a defensive end has no business getting his hand on the ball like that. None.
Right. No.
None.
And so you see, Kyle's expecting pressure there. Like he's
Hmm.
expecting them to come blitz at him, so he's gonna draw in that inside pressure and treat it like an outside handoff. That's really what he's doing. He's wanting to get the
Hmm.
ball out of the quarterback's hand quick because
Hmm.
screens sometimes can develop slow. And I remember we did try one screen, and I believe it was to use check,
Yeah,
and
I
it
remember.
was youth check or Kittle, and it was blown up. So
Hmm.
they did try one. It was completely sniffed out, blown up. There were so many things there where you go, man. But I like what you're saying about get some of the non uh DC guys. So
Right.
I'm meaning like a defensive coordinator is going to come in, and the 49ers are about to play you. They're coming into your house. You're going to put up on the board first thing in your first meeting with the defense. We have got to be physical against this offense. Lost Mr. G again. We're going to be physical against this offense, and you're going to circle Deebo Samuel. We will not let him change the game. We will not let Deebo Samuel. We won't let Deebo Samuel come in and wreck our game. So that's a guy. We have to know where number one is at all times. So they're going to circle Deebo. And he's probably going to be the number one person they put up on that board. They're going to say, Christian McCaffrey's not playing in this game. So everybody know where number one is on every single play. Then they're going to say, know where George Kittle is on every single play. Where's 85? So, like what you're saying is start using that and say, they're going to know where Deebo is. They're going to know where George Kittle is. You need to get somebody like Eric Saubert involved. You need to bring in Jacob Cowing, get him on a reverse, get him on, play action pass coming the other way or something. They started out sort of like that early, got a couple big throws to Juwan Jennings. But from the graph I saw, Eric Saubert had the most yards of separation of any 49ers receiver yet over the first 2 weeks, which is exactly what you're talking about. There's a lot of attention given to Deebo, a lot of attention given to George Kittle. You're going to have, if you have that second tight end in there, that's an option for you. Start using that. Use that to say, we have other weapons instead of, metrics show that if Deebo Samuel touches the ball 15 times, we win the game. Well, how do you get the ball in his hands with the space that you have in those other games? Because you had a Christian McCaffrey. Well, now you need to, almost Christian McCaffrey by committee with your guys like Jacob Cowing and Eric Saubert and Jordan Mason into the ways that Deebo can get the ball.
All you're asking to do to the defense is you're not going to.
We lost him again. He must be driving through an area where he's getting spotty coverage. But yeah, it's the 49ers offense. It reminds you of what we've seen over the years from Kyle Shanahan, where he loses a key part of what he was planning on doing with his offense the entire offseason. I remember 2018 was this way, lost Jerick McKinnon right before the start of the season. That the offense looked very, very dysfunctional during the early part of that season. And then, Jimmy obviously tore his ACL. Big thank you here for Lisa with coming in with the super chat. She says, would Huff made a difference on that deep pass? Mooney following Justin Jefferson, maybe Deebo and Trent should have changed jerseys. Yeah, they don't allow that in the middle of the game, but that would be pretty good. Yeah, I don't know if Huff would have made a difference on that play. I just really don't like the call. I don't like putting a safety. If it's Hufanga, I saw Mustafa came in later in the game. Again, I didn't see anything on the injury report about Odom that he may have been pulled from that game. I got to watch the tape and figure out, what was the reason? Was there a reason for the change there? Were they trying to get more physical against the run? I thought George Odom played a really good game. Now I have to make a correction on my review video that I put out last week. I called him Greg Odom. We're not talking about basketball here. And I just made that. I don't know why Odom. I thought of Greg Odom, the basketball player, but George Odom. I got to see why they pulled him. If it's for that play, I do have an issue there because you're as a defense coordinator putting your player in a really tough position. So, but that's something that we're gonna have to watch for going forward. And run fits, Demetrius Flanagan fouls. I said it during preseason. I want to see Curtis Robinson play. I do. I don't know why they trust him so much. DFF, he has always been poor against the run, poor run fits. And you were giving up too many yards per carry during that game. You have to stop the run early, and you have to be able to then set yourself up to get into those pressure packages and your stunts and your twists and all that stuff on defense. So I don't know. There's questions there. Yes, Greenlaw will be coming back, but he's not coming back for at least another few weeks. Mr. G popping in with the super chat. Thank you so much. And thank you for hopping in to the show and coming in with some great stuff. He says, you run a good program. Can't wait for the breakdown. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We try here on Johnny Dell's Football Academy. I am Johnny Dell. But we'll see. Hopefully, going from forward, we'll be able to really, turn it around. I'm usually, as you guys know, the forever optimist. I'm a fan at heart, and I believe they're going to turn it around. They're going to figure this out. I do think this is something that hopefully over the next few weeks they really start to figure this out. Some self scouting, and with the certainty that you don't have Christian McCaffrey, that the game planning starts from the beginning with that. I think you have this, we have plan A, that Christian McCaffrey's there, plan B and C. Well, when you're in the game and you're in plan B and that doesn't start working, then plan C, and now you're getting to plan D and trying to make that work, well, that's a problem. What you need to do is get back to, now we don't have Christian McCaffrey. We don't have this luxury. So let's build up from there. That's plan A, is that we don't have Christian McCaffrey, and go from there. So I think that's where things will start to get to. I hope this is a wake up call game on that. And I guess the bright side of Christian McCaffrey going on IR really forces Kyle Shanahan to say, I don't have that toy, and I can't even plan to have that toy. I'm not going to spend time this week planning that I could have that toy there, that I have to use the other tools in the toolbox. And yes, I am calling the 49ers players tools for not winning the game yesterday. They should have absolutely won. But thank you guys so much for the super chats, for coming in, for hanging with us during a loss in week 2. Man, we got to get through a long season, y'all. We waited so long for football to be here, and then it's here, and you lose one game, and it's everybody loses their minds. But it's all right. That's just, it wouldn't be the 49ers fan base if we didn't lose our minds a little bit over a loss. But love you guys. Thank you so much. You are awesome, awesome people for tuning in. But until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Niners.